Alright, hey guys, and welcome to my review of the Cubot H1. This is a pretty interesting phone. We're going to jump into a sped up version of the unboxing real quick. There'll be a link on the screen if you want to see the full unboxing. Anyway, this is a pretty interesting phone. It has a 64-bit processor, 2 gigs of RAM, and a 720p display. You may be a little off-put by the name. You're like, Cubot, what's that? Well, it's actually a Chinese brand, not just a made-in-China phone like, iPhones are made in China or stuff, but it's a Chinese brand. Well, some people that may be a huge turnoff. For me, it's kind of like going full circle. My first ever Android device was actually a Chinese tablet, and it still works to this day. Not 100%, but it still actually works, and this is like 5 years later or something like that. By the time of recording this phone will run you about $165, which may seem like a lot to some people. You gotta remember this is completely unlocked. When you get a brand new phone that's like $200 from AT&T or whatever, you'll end up spending an extra like $20, $40 a month trying to pay off the extra money that you saved for supposedly getting this phone for only $200. But with this, since it's unlocked, you can get it for, what you see is how much you pay, not including your monthly service charge that's just for, running the phone normally. Now, before we go any farther, yes, this was a review model. I didn't actually buy this outright. I got it sent to me by a wholesaler. And since it was a wholesaler, not Cubot themselves, they didn't actually place any limitations on what I can say. So yes, I'll be talking definitely about the killer specs on this phone. You're getting a really good amount of specs for this small price, but there are some things that you'll definitely have to look out for. This isn't just like a perfect phone with no issues whatsoever. There are some things you definitely look out for. So stick around for at least the first couple minutes. I'll try to condense down the super important stuff to the first 5 minutes or so, and then from there on we'll go into the more technical stuff. So just try to stick around at least for that, and let's just jump right in. Alright, before we get too far into the specs, we're just going to talk about the design real quick. It has a really nice texture to the back. I kind of like it. It's kind of like it just keeps it from just being flat, not too grippy or anything, so you won't get your hands all sweaty from just touching that if you choose to forego the protective casing. It also has a nice built-in screen protector, which is something you never see on phones. I have never bought even an expensive phone that had a screen protector that came with it and pre-installed. Also has this really nice metallic bezel around the outside to give it a really nice look. I mean, just look at this thing. You got your power button on the right side, nicely, you can see it very clearly. And on the top, you got your headphone jack, standard size. You also have an IR blaster so you can use it as a universal remote, and then your charging port. And on the back, you got your 16 megapixel camera, and on the side, you got your volume control. The volume control is really nicely spaced. And here you can get a pretty good look at the screen. Unfortunately, it looks kind of rainbowy, but that's just because of the camera I was using. But yeah, it's 720p, but it still looks very, very crisp and clear. And it's actually really bright. This is the lowest brightness setting on the Cubot versus the lowest, or I'll turn it down. The lowest brightness setting on my Cubot versus the lowest brightness setting on my LG G2. And as you can see, for the lowest brightness setting, it's actually pretty bright. Using an app like Twilight will certainly help with that, as at night you don't want a super, super bright screen blinding your eyes. Twilight will tint your screen based on the time of day, and when it gets later at night it'll tint it more orange so it won't burn your eyes out. The first thing I noticed when using this phone is just how fast the scrolling speed and the animations are. That's probably partially due to the quad-core processor it uses, but I also checked the developer settings and noticed that they actually turned down all the animations. They went to the animation speed and turned down the animation scale to 0.5x, which means all animations are twice as fast, which also definitely helps with scrolling and responsiveness, something I normally turn on myself. It's kind of cool that they did that out of the box. Alright, now one more thing that needs to be covered before we get too far into the review is compatibility. Yes, this phone is made to be used in the USA, but it's also made to be worldwide. It has 2 SIM slots for 2 different types of SIM cards, but if you want to actually be able to use this, there's a few things you'll need to consider. First, what carrier you're going to be using on. Second, data type you're going to be using on, if you have a data plan or not. And the third thing is your SIM card type. So the first thing you'll need to know is this phone doesn't actually support, it's made for 4G, but it doesn't actually support the 4G band in the USA. And to add on to that, another big negative thing like I was telling you about before is it doesn't actually support the 3G band for pretty much most places in the United States. Now, if you live outside the United States, in the UK or even China, you can check online. I found this cool website that will actually tell you where it works. But this is definitely something you want to check out. Now, some of you might say, like, well, if it doesn't work with 4G or 3G, then it's completely useless, right? Well, for me, it's not actually a huge deal. I've been using this as my main phone for 3 weeks, and I've barely even noticed the fact that I couldn't get much data. Sure, certain apps that require a lot of data, like the Google Play Store, trying to download stuff, yeah, that's a problem. But all I really need mobile data for when I'm not within range of Wi-Fi is just checking my email, getting map data from my GPS, or just Googling something real quick. And for all that, 2G work and 1G work just fine. 2G is actually better, but I mean, for me, it's not really a big deal. For you, it might be, but for me, it's actually not. Most places I go have Wi-Fi. But yes, I understand that for some people that is a major selling point. That could be a deal breaker. For some people, they may say, like, I need fast data more than I need good specs. And I understand that. But this phone has some really, really nice specs. You're getting quite a bit for your money, even if you can't, like, surf the web when you're on the go super, super fast. So let's go ahead and jump back into other stuff. Wi-Fi reception on the H1 is actually really nice. It gets actually noticeably better reception than even my AT&T LG G2. That unlocked would run you over $200 even now. But as you can see, it actually gets quite a bit better reception. The Cubot's on the left, the LG is on the right. As you see right there. Even just moving my phone a little bit closer, my LG loses quite a bit more signal. And as far as Wi-Fi speed goes too, it is actually pretty speedy, just about getting my maximum transfer rate. The bandwidth is a little bit slower than the LG G2, but the ping itself is actually a little bit faster. So definitely a very nice Wi-Fi chip speed-wise in here as well. Upload is pretty good too, but upload seems to suffer quite a bit more than the download. But again, still very good for Wi-Fi and with my router in a separate room. Now for something a little bit more fun, we'll be talking about game performance. Games work actually pretty well. I was really surprised by how well it handles multiple different types of 3D games. They look really nice, despite the screen being only 720p. You can't even really tell because this looks really nice. The screen is rated as a 2.5D screen. They say that because they gave it a slightly curved glass, not the actual phone being curved, but just the glass. While it actually does add a visual effect, if you look at it and you actually know what you're looking for, you can tell it's something a little bit different about it, but it doesn't really change a whole lot. It's kind of cool, but it doesn't really distract from using the phone or really enhance the experience. This phone supports multi-touch up to 5 inputs at once. I don't know how you'd have 5 inputs, but if you can, then it supports it, and if your game supports it, it supports it. It also supports motion control for certain games to support that as well. So it really just has all the basic stuff you need for just general gaming, as well as a pretty good GPU and a pretty good CPU. So it can handle most of the games I threw at it. It handled pretty well, as I said before. And by watching this video in 60 FPS, you should be able to see a one-for-one pretty much representation of how the games actually run. And yes, while the phone does only have 16 gigabytes of internal storage, there is quite a bit of space open when you first get the phone. I'm used to having phones with a lot of bloatware, but this one's really light on the bloatware, which is nice. So you have quite a bit of space to work with. And also, since you can expand the storage, they say you can only put an extra 32 gigs in with a 32 gigabyte micro SD card, but most Android phones I've seen can actually support more, so you could probably throw in a 64 or whatever, even though they say it's not supported. Now going back to the phone's design again, yes, the 5.5 inch screen is pretty big. And as for the weight, it weighs about 200 grams, which is 0.44 pounds, a little less than half a pound. So it's not too heavy, but the phone is actually big. I have pretty big hands, so I didn't really find much trouble holding it. And the fact that there are no speakers on the side definitely means you can rest your hands without having to worry about covering up the speakers. The speakers are on the back, which is not perfect, but it actually lets you hear your sounds without much muffling or whatever from like what it would be like if you had the speakers on the bottom. It's 6.1 inches long, 3 inches wide, and 0.4 inches tall. But one thing that really makes up for the ginormous weight and size of this phone is the fact that they actually have a pretty huge battery in it. Just to give you a frame of reference, the Samsung Galaxy Note Edge, which is their like pretty big phone out now, the Note Edge has a 3,000 milliamp hour battery. That's really good. The whole reason I got my LG G2 was because it had a 3,000 milliamp hour battery. It was a pretty big battery at the time, and even the newest iPhone 6s Plus only has a 2,900 milliamp hour battery. All those seem like pretty big batteries because, well, they are. Well, the Cubot H1 actually has a 5,200 milliamp hour battery. That is just huge. Just to give you a frame of reference on how long that will last, let's take a look at my battery status from a few days of testing. The middle section is what we're going to be looking at first. That's a more of a light day where you're using things that are less taxing, you know, just checking your email every once in a while, reading some status updates, posting some stuff. That's probably what you see after that. I'm going to highlight it in a second so you can see what it makes up. That makes up about 20% of my maximum battery. And again, I did use my phone like at least 10 times that day, but it was just mainly for just status stuff. No videos, no games or anything like that. But just seeing that you can actually use your phone and have that much battery left, only 20% used up. Now the third day I have here, it's a little bit more dramatic. The biggest drop is the 20% you see there. Not 20%, sorry. The blue section you see there is when I was running it for an entire hour on GPS. It was actively using GPS and mobile data at the same time, so it took quite a bit of power from the phone. So you'll probably not see a drop that dramatic unless you're doing something crazy too, but how often would you be running the GPS for like 10 hours straight? That's about how long it would probably take to completely drain the phone when just using only GPS. The thing you see at the bottom, the pink thing, that's from streaming. I was streaming some music, and as you see, it's a pretty similar drop too. When you're doing anything that's requiring constant downloads or constant use of the GPS, that will actually drain the battery faster, just like with a normal phone too. But for normal use, I'd say you could probably get at least 3 days out of this if you're not, like, you know, playing games all the time. Playing games for a little while, like 15-20 minutes, will drop the battery a little bit, sure. But overall, this battery is actually pretty long lasting. Alright, now let's go ahead and take a look at the camera. It can record up to 13 megapixels for photos when using a 4:3, which is a square photo. Or if you do 16:9, you'll be limited to around 9 megapixels, I believe. And let's just go ahead and see how these pictures turn out. This one's a little bit dark, but I'm going to go ahead and try to show it on the screen for you as soon as I can get one to take. And while it may not handle low light or look as good as the $600 camera I borrowed to record this, it still does actually look pretty good. I mean, you can see the quality, even though it's pretty close up. It's definitely low light in here. Not as dark as the picture, but still. It handled it pretty well. Alright, and I just took a second one. And let's go ahead and see how this one turns out. Again, looks good. Another close-up picture, and again indoors. I'll see if I can get some outdoor photos in a bit. Now we're going to do some video recording. Just giving you an idea of how it looks in the viewfinder, and then you'll see how it looks in real life. Yeah, I'm going to try to have some more videos and photos up. I'll try to record some in a few days and just link them in the description. But yeah, this is just a test of video quality. And I found out afterwards it records in .3GP, so that's not any of your normal video formats. That's not like MP4, MP2, or anything like that. It's a kind of weird video format. But anyway, we're using all these photos and videos have been using this stock setting so far. Alright, let's move along to audio real quick. We're trying to play a little clip of music from a soundtrack of a game. It's a free-to-play game. It's a pretty cool game, too. Hopefully that won't get me flagged for copyright, but let's just go ahead and try out some audio. I'm going to be streaming this from Spotify. I don't have any songs on here yet. Alright, well, sorry that I couldn't show the whole thing. I'm just trying to avoid copyright strikes, even though this is a song that I'm giving out for free. But anyway, one issue that I did come across with listening to music, especially when it's streaming music, is it seems to have one of the Wi-Fi chipsets similar to one that was in some of the older Nexus 7 tablets. And you can tell because it has the same problem that those tablets used to have. It has the problem where if you try to stream music and play it over Bluetooth, or stream anything and play over Bluetooth, you start to get major lag and hitching. This is only when you're playing higher quality content. Like if you turn it down to normal quality on Spotify, there's not much of a problem. But especially if you're doing high quality or especially extreme quality, you'll notice a significant problem with streaming. I'll show you that right about now. And now that we're on normal quality, it should play without any actual problems. As you can see, we're gone through and it doesn't hitch anymore. So it mainly has to deal with the actual quality of the media being streamed. So this will affect videos too, not just audio. But as long as you turn down the quality, it's not a big deal. And if you remember, if you turn off Bluetooth, it doesn't have any problems with streaming. It's just specifically streaming to Bluetooth that causes this actual problem. But as you see, we're even farther into the song and no hitching whatsoever. So it definitely has to deal with the quality of the media going through. And for one last sound test, I'm going to play a YouTube video I recorded a little bit earlier, so you can hear how it plays through the phone speakers, and you can tell the audio quality from that.
Spoilers, and this will be talking about stuff that was either featured in the trailer or the official gameplay video, so no spoilers, you don't have to worry about that.
Alright, now we're going to do a very crude test of call quality. I'm just sticking the phone on top of the camera, so it will sound a little bit better in real life, but this will just give you a general idea.
Alright, hopefully this will give you a general idea of how the audio quality sounds. The camcorder, so you should be used to hearing the actual camcorder microphone.
So yeah, it's going to be echoing a little bit, but we're actually listening to the phone, and I'm talking into the cell phone. So that should give you a general idea of how it sounds. I'm talking pretty softly, not very loud, because it's quieter than I normally talk. Alright, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that wasn't a very good example. But anyway, the sound quality is actually pretty good. It's not bad at all, and receiving is, yeah, as you heard, it's a little bit soft, but I didn't have any trouble with any calls. I didn't have to ask anyone to repeat anything. I didn't have to have myself repeat anything, but hey, that could just be me. But overall, sound quality is not bad in my opinion. Although that beeping noise you heard, not beeping, the buzzing noise is kind of annoying. That will not happen during calls, on your end or the other person's end, but it does happen if you have your phone too close to a speaker. I'll play an example of that while I'm talking. Again, this isn't a constant thing, it just happens when your phone's transferring data over a cellular network. This is not an uncommon problem, but this phone does seem to be more sensitive than others. My LG G2, I leave charging by my computer and speakers all the time, it doesn't have the same problem. This phone just seems to be more sensitive. Alright, so one other feature which I haven't gone over yet is the universal remote feature. My specific phone actually didn't come with a universal remote app installed, but luckily there are quite a few you can get for free on the Google Play Store. Most of them, if you want to unlock the more advanced features, you actually have to pay for them, but hey, at least they bother to unlock the IR sensor. In some phones like my LG G2, it's completely locked, so if you try to install other apps that aren't the LG remote, you can't use them at all. So I mean, at least with this one, they give you the choice, although I do wish it actually came with an app pre-installed. Alright, now look at some benchmarks and statistics on the phone, and quite obviously it's not going to stack up against those big boys like the Galaxy Note 4 and stuff like that. It does have some really nice specs, but it's not that good. Alright, so let's just go ahead and take a look at the individual scores. And while, yes, this is a high-performance device, it's definitely not going to stack up against those $600 phones. Yes, it is a good deal for its money, but you're not getting $600 worth, obviously. And here we can see the Geekbench CPU benchmark scores. And if you look at the score comparisons, it's actually a little bit better than the Galaxy S3, which is pretty cool because Galaxy S3 unlocked and run you around $200, I believe. So definitely a little over the price of this phone. This thing is brand new too, so it's pretty cool. Alright, and that's just about it. If the fact that in the US you can't really get 4G and 3G didn't scare you away, then I still think this is actually a pretty awesome phone. Just for the closing remarks, no, I am not getting paid for this review. I did receive this review model though, and no, I don't even have a referral link to give you, so I don't make any money off this at all. So if you guys get this phone or don't, that's completely up to you. It doesn't help me or hurt me at all. So, but I still think it's worth considering if you're in the market for this type of phone. Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all later. Bye.